So welcome back to Case Studies. I'm so excited today to chat with my new friend. Haven't known each other for a long time, but I've been a consumer of your creations for a long time. And it's funny, but once you meet the founder, you like the food more. And like I liked it before, but now like I seek it out when I'm in the grocery store and stuff. Anytime I see True Fruit, I'm seeking it out and eating it and telling people about it and referring it, just because I don't know, it's just fun to know somebody that went and created something, out of thin air. And so can't wait to get into that. I want to jump in right off the bat to something we were just talking about, which is your dad paid you to read books growing up.
Yeah.
Which is like close to my heart. It's something that like I love doing. Tell me about that.
Yeah. He was an entrepreneur. He called himself a peddler, and he would say, I use that term in the highest regard. In fact, all of my salespeople in our company, which is True Fruit, could repeat his mantra was, nothing happens until something's sold. So he would live, he lived by that. So he was a distributor of lawn care equipment. So he had a couple of lines, and he would out hustle the competition. He prided himself. He hated Toro. They were the enemy. So he prided himself on every golf course in Utah at one time, didn't have a single Toro lawnmower. He had all Jacobson and Aaron's and all of his stuff. So yeah, he was, a real hustler.
Yeah, like a hustler.
In a good sense of the term. He would be there first. He would provide great service. But he really believed in having a vision, or he grew up poor, grew up in Logan, single mom for the most part. His dad died when he was young. And his mom, raised him, and he grew up very poor. So he really wanted us to have a goal in life. So he paid us to read books, everything we could to advance our maybe determination to succeed. I don't know what his real motivation was, but at the time I didn't care because it was,
money.
I was motivated by the money, so became an avid reader. But
yeah, go through kind of like the books that he had you read.
So he started with The Mature Mind, which we talked a little bit about. Really old book. Talks about kind of the marshmallow. It's like the marshmallow experiment, the Stanford marshmallow experiment.
Yeah.
You
have your gratification.
You have it now, or can you wait for it? And do you have a mature enough mind to be patient and think? So good book. Didn't move the needle that much. But then I started reading some Stephen Covey books.
Yeah.
He and Stephen Covey were classmates. And he wanted me to read some of those.
Classmates where? At BYU or Harvard?
At business school. Yeah,
Harvard.
In Boston. So
your dad went from single mom.
Yep.
Like just scrapper, hustler.
Flew jets in the Air Force. Wound up at Harvard Business School. Then ran his own little business. So
it's incredible.
He was a good dude. So good example. Anyway, but then he had me read Rich Man, Poor Man. I think I wrote that one on myself, but Richest Man in Babylon, How to Win Friends and Influence People, Dale Carnegie's book. I remember reading that in business school. So that might have been on my own, but there was some great, he just had a pretty good reading list, got us started reading. And then from there, we kind of read on our own, I think.
Yeah. Well, what do you like? What are the takeaways from it when you're thinking back? Because some of it's just, that didn't affect me much. But there's some of it that's like, hey, I still do this stuff to this day, or I still remember this, or this is kind of part of my...
To have a plan, right? To have, to become financially independent. Yeah. I'll say it that way. You need to have a plan. And all that taught me was you got to have a plan. And I loved, it was the first, I was raised in the church. So tithing was always part of my thing, but didn't really hit me until I read The Richest Man in Babylon. And part of his thing is you're going to give away some of your money so you don't worship money. You don't become so greedy that it's all about the money. You still got to provide a service. You still got to provide a product. That should be the goal. So that was really internal. I really internalized that.
No, it's so great. my mission, my mission president allowed us to read Covey.
Oh yeah.
And I read everything.
Did you read the Roots of Human Relations?
Spiritual Roots of Human Relations.
Yes, that was an awesome
Center.
book.
I could literally rip off all of them. Like it influenced me so much at an age where I was so influenceable.
Right.
Like I had just this desire, just to like succeed. It was just this burning desire. And I remember it impacted me so much that to my third daughter, our third kid, I went to my wife. I was like, hey, I really want to name our third kid Covey.
Oh, yeah.
And so boy or girl, and so my daughter is named Covey. And it's after Stephen Covey, just because it was those ideas of you have the ability to choose and that you can choose your response, that you are response able.
Right.
And it was just like, I can choose this. I can go live the life, but then a framework of you got to have a goal. You got to begin with the end in mind. You got to prioritize. You got to put first things first. And then how people fit in the mix with think, win, seek first, understand, synergize. And like, lastly, the sharpening the saw changed my life.
That one was a big one for me.
Changed my life, and these concepts at a young age, we were talking about just our dads and just how inspired / impactful they were,
Yeah.
So cool.
I owe a lot to Big Bob.
Yeah. So I want to go back to the origin story. So your dad grew up single mom, hustler, worked his way through college, Harvard Business School, really successful business owner, but very blue collar. Go ahead.
I was going to say, dyed in the wool Aggie. You can't talk about him without talking about dyed in the wool Utah State Aggie.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was the first of 40 some odd cousins that went anywhere but Utah State.
And he's heartbroken.
When I came to BYU, he was ticked off. I wasn't spoken to for a while.
So how many brothers and sisters? What was life growing up?
Great life growing up. 5 kids. I was the middle of 5 kids. So I had an older brother, older sister, younger brother, younger sister. Always knew what it was like to have all of those. Great family, very supportive. Had a great mom. She was a ranch girl from Idaho. Her dad was another influence on me. Lee Zollinger. He was just a tough old ranch hand. Great sense of humor. Taught us how to be tough from a young age. Pulled me out of the truck by my ears and stood me up because I didn't want to get out because it was too cold. After I told him I wanted to come with him to feed cows.
Yeah.
So he straightened us out. But good, really good upbringing. We all, we were all motivated to work hard. We all, I still remember Bev. She was a horse lover, so we had horses, and I didn't really like horses, but some of my family, my brothers and sisters did. But she would line out in the pasture, like a 5-acre pasture. She would line out, this is your row to weed, because we had some noxious weeds growing that the horses wouldn't eat. So we had to pull them all. And I remember looking down that row thinking, I will never finish this job. And picking raspberries. She grew lots of raspberries. So I was always picking raspberries as a kid. I never disliked that, though. For whatever reason, some people hated picking raspberries, but I loved it.
You liked it.
Yeah, I like the harvest. I've always loved to be around a harvest. I've always just loved that, what it means. But so yeah, that was my childhood was a great childhood. Grew up in Bountiful, Utah. Went to public school and then went was invited to play football up at BYU.
Yeah, I was going to say, you were an athlete, right?
Yeah. So that was a big part of my form. What formed me as
athletics.
Adult athletics. Yep. Right. I've always compared athletics to the classroom. That athletics teaches something that the classroom can't. It teaches you teamwork. Where in the classroom you're competing with your whole class for a grade. In sports, you're competing with a team.
Well, it's so much more similar to the real world.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Very rarely in business are you like trying to be the top one at, and have other. It's so collaborative. It's like you create it together. And really what matters is what the team creates, the team outcome and the culture. And, you know, a theme, I didn't know it was going to be a theme of this podcast, but a lot of it has been coaches.
Yeah.
And I think it's because for me, it impacted me so much growing up. I worship my coaches because they influenced me so much, and I loved sport. But I just did one of these with Jay Hill, who's the defensive coordinator up at BYU.
Yeah, he's a great guy.
Oh my gosh, I didn't know how great of a guy he was. You know, you listen to it and you just realize like a great coach can just change people's lives. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I don't know him well, but I coached high school football for a while.
I didn't know that.
With one of my classmates, one of my football teammates at BYU. Yeah. A guy that one of my absolute heroes in life, Lou Wong. But he invited me to coach, and Jay Hill was the only coach that would recruit at Timpview. I coached at Timpview. We had some pretty good years. We won
a lot of championships,
a lot of times. And he would come stand by you on the sideline and say, "Tell me about your kids. Which one should I be looking at?" And he would ask each individual coach on the sideline that. And not the only other coach that ever came close to that was the Stanford coach. But he was up at Utah at the time. But I really respect him for that.
Wow.
Yeah, he was really interesting.
Yeah, so cool. So played sports, excelled in high school, went to college, played in college.
Play's a loose word. I was on the team. I played actually. I didn't start, but I traveled with the team as a freshman at Utah State. Came back. They didn't offer scholarship back. They said, walk on.
Yeah.
I said, well, I can get a scholarship at Rick's. I went to Rick's, played there a year.
Rick's was a good school.
They had a
like
good
as far as junior
program.
college, they were kind
back
of
in the day
as good as anybody in the country.
Yeah, we competed for national championships, but then got invited to come down to BYU as a preferred walk-on. So came down and played there. Was on the team for a year. I've ended up for some weird reason second string. I started at fourth string, but worked my way up. But then got injured, at the end of the first year, and then that ended my career.
How was it like getting to the end of the road?
Tough.
Yeah,
tough. Because I never pictured myself not finishing playing football through college and possibly beyond. So when the doctor told me, look, you're okay as a football player, but you're not, if you want to play, if you keep playing, you may not walk, you may limp the rest of your life if you get injured again.
Yeah, mine wasn't a doctor. I just wasn't good enough. And it was like so hard. I still remember I went down to UVU to go play.
Yeah.
And play again, that's a relative term. And I played, it was right after my mission. And again, like it was my identity. It was just who I was.
Right.
And I just didn't have it and played that fall season. I remember I didn't even know I was trying out. And I went and they posted the list of the team for the spring, and I wasn't on the list. And I remember driving up Provo Canyon just crying like a baby, just like broken. And, those moments are so beautiful looking back, even like the lows, because you realize it's tough to kind of fully experience the highs unless you've really tasted the lows. But that was one of those lows.
Yeah.
And I think about that a lot because that started my career in door to door, and I never would have done it. I never would have started, if I wouldn't have kind of got forced to start.
Right.
And, God's just good like that. How, there's just plans that aren't your plans. But I ask, how is it to finish? Because when that's everything to you growing up, to actually say, hey, this isn't going to be my identity anymore. I got to go find the next thing,
Right.
It's tough.
It pushed me into the accounting program at BYU, and they had a great accounting program. And so went on from there. I don't know what I would have done if I would have stayed in football. But, I got real, right? Life got real right then. Cause
you had to grow up.
You got to have a career. You better freaking figure it out now.
And you're so driven with goals for sport.
Yeah.
That
you got to have something.
If you don't find another game to go play.
Right.
Yeah. So you just jumped right into accounting, like full steam.
Full steam.
Yeah.
And I have a lot of respect for accountants, but that is one tough career.
Yeah.
I mean, it's an honest career. I went and practiced for 4 years, public accounting in California.
Yeah.
And an honest profession. I mean, really good people in it. You don't find a lot of schmucks in the accounting world, but you are facing backwards the whole time.
So talk to me about that. You know, you go to the entrepreneurial journey at the end, but talk to me about the beginning and just how that skill set, that accounting framework, helped you as an entrepreneur.
That's the language of business, so you have to be able to read a financial statement to understand how a business is doing.
Yep.
And you really have to understand not only the income statement, but the balance sheet from year to year. So for me, it was really good background, really good training. What bothered me about accounting was that I was always seeing something that had already happened.
Yeah.
And you could see, and the great thing about audit was you get lots of different industries. Like I was at a winery. I was at a real estate development company. I was at, just all kinds of Levi's. I was at all kinds of different companies doing audits.
You were with who? One of the big four, right?
Yeah. Well, at the time it was
Big
Eight,
Five. Yeah.
but it was Big Eight.
Or Big Eight.
Yeah. Back then. So it was Touche Ross at the time that merged with Deloitte & Touche.
Yeah.
But anyway, it was good experience, but it wasn't going to be my career, and I was an average accountant.
When did you?
It wasn't.
When did you know this isn't what I'm going to do?
Oh, right. I mean, when I was studying it,
you knew.
I'm like, wow. If I have to do this all my life, I will not survive.
This is not me.
That's right. But I had to learn it.
Yeah.
I had to learn it. I knew that to get to where I wanted to go, I had to learn it. So I spent 4 long years slogging, and you work hard as an accountant.
Yeah.
And that came natural to me. That didn't bother me.
You like the grind.
Yeah, I'm a grinder. So we grind. I mean, it was billable hours, and we were on the road a lot, and it was it was a bit of a grind. It wasn't great for my wife, but we didn't have any children at the time, so it worked out okay.
And so when was it that you decided, hey, I'm not going to do that?
I knew before I graduated, I wanted to run my own business, but it was a matter of timing.
Was it just kind of, I need to go get a nest egg? Or
I need to understand. I need to experience. I need to see how people make mistakes.
So it was deliberate. You're I want to go get some real world experience. I want to see how people
operate businesses. And so did that, and then went to business school, wanted to transition out of accounting. And business school was a great way to transition.
And you went to Harvard, right?
Harvard Business School.
And so you're in California.
Right.
And then transfer to the East Coast.
Yeah, all the way to, yeah. Different cultures.
No kids still.
No kids.
How fun.
We did. Don't ever do this, but we decided we're going to wait to have kids because we had been trying to have kids and couldn't.
Yeah.
So, we're 4 years married, so we quit trying. And of course, that's when it happens, right? So Tammy calls me to dinner one night. She's got this special dinner, and I had no clue. She just caught me so off guard. She goes, "Hey, I just want you to know we're pregnant." And the words that came out of my mouth, this is when you need a filter, was, "We're screwed." And she just started crying. I'm like, no, that's not what I meant. Of course I'm happy. It's just just wasn't, the timing was, because I anticipated I'm going to have to really dive in business school and be really dedicated. I don't have time to stay up all night with a baby. So that was what was going through my head like an idiot, right? So anyway, we survived that, and we had 2 kids in Boston, about 18 months apart. And then I went into consulting.
And who'd you go work with?
Back to Deloitte & Touche. Okay. They had merged while I was in school.
Wow.
And they offered me a consulting job back in LA.
Yep.
So we moved back to LA and worked there for 2 years. And that was
it's
good experience.
It's so fun to see like these foundations. You know what I mean? Because you think about like how important consulting is and seeing a lot of different industries from the strategy side.
Yeah.
But then also seeing them from like the plumbing and like balance sheet and who makes money and who doesn't, cash conversion cycle and all this stuff. You just think before you'd even like got in the entrepreneurial game, you had a really good foundation.
Well, I was working on it and still didn't have everything I needed, but I thought I did.
Yeah.
But consulting was better because you're looking forward, right? You're looking at problems that you got to solve now to keep going.
Yeah.
Right. So it's now you're looking forward at least. So I like that, but overall consulting That's a good gig. You travel a lot. We had 2 young daughters. I was gone, I don't know, probably 19, 20 days a month.
I was going to say most of the time, right?
Most
like
on the road.
You're going.
Tammy's a single mom living in LA. So that wasn't going to last forever.
Yeah.
Especially when you look at all the partners and most of them are on their second or third spouse. It's like,
well what's funny to me though, like, is you go back and you say, like, was it The Mature Mind that your dad had you read? Well, what's that book?
It was that.
What?
I don't think it was that. I think it was.
But there's like a piece of it that's like something that you were educated at a young age says, I need to pay the price.
Yeah.
Like there's a price to be paid and I need to go pay my dues and go get this experience. And there's no other way to get it than to get it.
Yeah.
There was something.
I don't know. I had great mentors growing up, and I'm sure they were advising me. My dad would always say, make mistakes on somebody else's dime before you start on your own.
He was a good coach.
He was a good coach.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think it was probably him more than anything.
Got it.
But finally got to the point where, look, I'm ready to go on my own.
Do it. Yep.
I'm 32 years old now, and it's time to go. So started looking for a business to buy. Ended up buying Maxfield Candy in Salt Lake. And that was a rough go. Almost didn't get it bought, but at the last minute came through with. I had to raise. So my thing was, I want to buy a business, but I don't have enough money to buy it. I need somebody to finance it. So I need the owner to finance it.
Yep.
So I worked really hard at finding someone that would sell me their business and would finance part of it.
Yeah.
So luckily, Vard Maxfield said, you pay me 2/3 up front and I'll finance 1/3.
So not a ton of leverage.
No,
like a little bit of leverage, but enough to go get the deal done.
I had to raise more money than I had.
Yeah.
So anyway, ended up raising the money and getting it close. I remember I was 200,000 short, and they had extended the deadline once already, and they had another buyer that was ready, that had full cash.
We're going to do it.
To pay. They were going to do it. So he said, you got these 2 weeks and that's it. And I was 3 days away from close and didn't have the money. So I went into the CFO and said, hey, his name was Dick Smith. I said, Dick, I'm not going to get it done. And he said, well, would you consider taking some of my money? And he's a CFO.
Wow.
So
at the business.
So yeah, I said, man, you put money in, I'll kiss you on all 4 cheeks. And so he was like, done. So he closed the gap and we were able to close it. But it was mostly friends and family that financed it.
Yeah.
But ran that.
But that's like a big vote of confidence.
Yeah.
You have the CFO.
Yeah, the CFO
says, I want in. Yeah, I want to be a part of this. How cool is that?
That was great. So tough business though, seasonal business, manufacturing box chocolates. Grew up from, I think it was 6 million to about 25. Bought other companies. Brought on a business partner from business school. My dad and I went and visited all the other candy companies in Utah and just said, look, if you ever want to sell your company.
You and your dad did?
We're interested, yeah.
How fun.
Oh, I needed him. Nobody was going to lend me money. I'd never run a business before.
Yeah.
He'd retired. And so he was the gray hair.
But he had to have been so pumped for you. You're
pumped.
going for it.
He was pumped until we bought him. And then he was like, he loved the chase. But once we had to grind and run it,
he doesn't like
he's
that.
like, I'm out.
Yeah.
So the plan was we'll work together for a couple of years and then you'll fade off and I'll run it. And that lasted about.
He was out.
He was out within 6 months, gone. And I'll come to the board meetings, just give me the financials. I'll come pat you on the fanny every now and then.
Yeah.
So we ended up buying Ken Craft in Alpine from the Matheson family, and a good family and really great company, but had some problems. It was a turnaround. And I didn't realize how different the companies were. I just thought they were both candy companies. So I hired a business partner by the name of Dave Tacklett, really good guy. One of my absolute heroes in life. He came out we were business school classmates, but he was a Notre Dame grad. And I always say he was a better Catholic than I am a Mormon. He was really dedicated to his faith.
Yeah.
Just a great guy. To this day, good friends. Anyway, we ran those 2 companies and grew it and ended up going on an acquisition spree, but we grew organically as well. Grew it to about 120 million in sales and sold it.
Wow. So you guys went from 8 million to 120 million.
Yeah, 6 million with Maxfield to about 120. And half of it was organic growth and half of it was acquisition growth.
How do you think how much do you think your dad influenced you when you thought about sales, when you thought about revenue in your businesses?
Yeah, a lot.
Yeah,
a lot. I mean, I wasn't a sales guy. I was
ops.
I was always interested in ops. Ops always captured my attention. And in business school, I finally figured out that I'm really good at ops. It came natural to me.
That was
it was inherently I inherently understood it.
Yeah.
Whenever we'd have a case in ops, I would just I would understand it. And when I would raise my hand in class, I'd actually have something to say. In marketing, I'd raise my hand and people would just shake their head.
And it wasn't like,
what the hell are you talking about? It was a tough thing, but he was a big influence on. I knew that I wasn't great at sales.
Because you guys have always,
so I hired really good people.
I was going to say,
I recognized
in all of your companies, what I've admired, and again, this is from the outside looking in, is that you've always had really robust sales and really, so you grow organically. You go figure out how to increase those same store sales and like go market and go do things. But then also you do the M&A route. So you kind of leverage the finance skills and, structuring, but your core business, you're growing it as if you didn't do that, you'd still have a great business. And I think that I've always liked that. Most of the time somebody either can grow organic, but have a real tough time adding other companies and integrating them in, or vice versa. They just go roll up the industry, but you really don't have any integration and you just kind of have like broken revenue, just like you've got a top line number, but it's not very succinct. And so I've always, from the first company to True Fruit, it seems like that was the same playbook, which is grow organic, but then also, go acquire.
So at True Fruit, we didn't acquire anything, but in this case, we needed brands and we didn't have brand. I mean, I learned the strength of a brand in the consumer product world. A brand means something. Right?
Yeah.
Because we made great candy, but we couldn't sell it for a lot of money because we had no brand.
Unless you had a brand.
You have a brand that made so we licensed Mrs. Fields and we raised our price, almost doubled our price. We did add a few more higher end pieces, but
just
it wasn't nearly as much as what as much as we raised the price.
Yeah.
But the brand strength held it, right? So learned a lot about branding and I learned that I wasn't a great marketing guy and hired really good marketing people and really good salespeople. And we were able to grow it together. And so we ended up selling that to 1-800-Flowers. And then we had to split. Dave had to go to work for 1-800-Flowers to help run the businesses they bought. They didn't buy all the businesses. They bought 2 of the flagship brands, Fannie Mae out of Chicago and Harry London out of Ohio.
Okay.
Fannie Mae's a destination retail brand that had great strength in a region, not nationally, but a great region brand. So I stuck with the others and ran them and then sold them off one at a time.
Yeah.
And then sort of retired. So
and kind of thought you were done, right?
Yeah, I kind of thought I was done. I mean, I thought that we had a good exit. It was successful.
Yeah.
Didn't have to work anymore. So started coaching football and volunteering for all the stuff that you do when you're not working, when you're retired. But I was probably a little too young to retire. But was introduced to, and I need to say this, I've always had really good partners in business. I've never flown solo. And I think there's people that do really well solo.
You've always really valued partners.
But I've always loved the interaction with a good partner.
Yeah.
So Dave Tack, a great partner at Alpine Confections when we ran that. And then Brandon O'Brien and Brian DeVille at True Fruit. So I was introduced to Brian. And when you start out by saying this was my company, it really was our company.
Yeah.
So I want to make sure that's really clear. Brandon and Brian, Brian had the idea of coating freeze-dried fruit and chocolate. He really he came from a background of food storage and freeze-dried products. So he wanted to coat freeze-dried fruit and chocolate. And so we kept working at it until we came up with this idea of a frozen fruit and chocolate. And that's when the business really took off.
That product is such a crazy product. Like, and we were talking about this because it's kind of an anomaly.
Yeah.
It's like, where do you put it? Is it fruit? Is it the health food section?
There is no category.
Yeah.
Right?
So it's so unique.
So we were so excited that we didn't have our own category that the farther we got into it, we're like, crap, it's hard to not have a category because people want to put you in different spots in every store.
Yeah.
So when you go to a store, you know where to look for milk, right? You know where to look for potato chips.
Yeah.
But you don't know where to look for true fruit because it might be different. It might be in fruit in one store and in ice cream in another store.
Yeah.
So it was easy to get lost. So we really struggled with that.
As far as positioning,
and we didn't have a category.
Yeah.
There was no category for our
So
product.
talk to me about the origin. How did you guys come up with the idea? And when did you kind of realize like, hey, I'm going to go make another run at this and I'm going to go really sign up to go operate again?
Yeah, I think when we came up with the frozen idea, then I was plenty happy. I mean, I was introduced to Brian. He had no idea on chocolate. He was a freeze dried industry geek. I mean, he knows freeze dried.
He just knows it up and
He
down.
knows it up and he knew all the suppliers.
Yep.
He knew who did what. I knew chocolate. I knew all the suppliers in chocolate and
From your
I'd worked
candy
with most
days.
of them from the candy days. Yeah. So, I mean, we'd bought hundreds of millions of dollars of chocolate from chocolate companies. So I knew all the big players. So, and I have a decent taste profile. So I worked really hard on pairing chocolate with the fruit.
Yeah.
From the very start, we said, okay, this has a healthy and indulgent mechanism.
This is
to it.
just you like sitting down in like the lab, like just eating, like just saying, this tastes good.
No,
Or is this
well,
like
from the freeze dried perspective, right? When he came up with freeze dried fruit, I'm like, well, it's better than a caramel center.
Yeah.
It's better for you.
Yeah.
So it's like, oh, maybe there's something there. But then when we came up with this, the frozen idea was really, it morphed. It wasn't the original idea.
It wasn't right out of the gates.
No. It developed over time. But Trader Joe's was selling a chocolate covered banana that was really good. My kids loved it. So we started looking at that. So it was a frozen banana covered in chocolate.
Yeah.
That's different. I mean, fresh fruit coated in chocolate, Sherry's Berries does a great job at that. I don't think we could ever do anything better than that. And all the shelf life issues with that. But frozen didn't have shelf life issues. And there was an execution out there by Dole. They had a product called Dole Dippers. And it was a great idea. And they had strawberries coated in dark chocolate. But I don't know where they were. It was a fruit company trying to be a chocolate company because they got the worst chocolate you could ever imagine.
Just missed it.
They just missed it. I mean, they just barely missed it. Had the right idea, but they didn't execute it well.
Yeah.
So we thought, well, this could be an elegant product.
Because that super high quality chocolate's got to be like the whole thing, right?
It's got to pair with the fruit, right?
Yeah.
The bottom line for me was, let's pair it with the fruit so the fruit pops.
Because I haven't thought about this ever, but I have experienced it. And when it works, it works.
Yeah.
Like you can't stop eating it.
Right.
We put it out and we've got ice cream and True Fruit and people are eating the True Fruit. And you're like, man, they got this right. Like,
it's moreish.
Yeah.
It's not high calorie. I mean, there's a lot of good things about it. And you're eating real fruit, so it's not terrible for you. So anyway, we felt like when we did the taste test at BYU and we tested better than, and they have a great lab, by the way, we tested as good as fudge, but had the health halo.
So are you just doing like surveys or how are you like getting this data?
So we actually took product in and they did I think 100-person test. I want to say
the school's doing it.
The school did.
Okay.
They have demographics that you can choose any demographics. This is their food science department.
Wow.
And they do a blind taste test and you have to create this, questionnaire on what things you're trying to figure out.
Yeah.
We're trying to figure out, well, how should we price it? How would you buy it again? How much did you like it compared to what, So you had to figure all that out and they're really good at that. So we came up with a plan and when it tested as well as fudge on the scale, I can't remember the name of the scale, but it's a taste test scale.
Yep.
but we had the health benefit of it. I thought, well,
That's
we really got something.
We got something.
We got lightning in a bottle. If we can.
Is this before you'd actually poured money into it?
Oh,
Is this kind of
we were just
figuring out.
We were screwing around at the time.
Minimum viable product, just experimenting.
It was just going to be, freeze dried product, and I thought that was a base hit. I didn't think it was a home run, but this one was clearly a home run.
So you guys built the team. It's you, Brandon, and Brian,
right?
Talk to me about like years. Where are you at in this? Kind of like what?
2017, Brian and I met, and then he took a year off to go run a company that he had bought. So it was during that time that we started looking at different. I started thinking about, well, what else could we do with fruit and chocolate?
Yep.
And so that's when we came across this frozen idea. But then we had to figure out how to make it. No one would make it I thought we'd get somebody to make it for us, and no one would make it for us. Because you can't mix you can't mix water and oil. Chocolate's oil-based, fruit's water-based.
Wow.
And if you mix the two, you have a disaster on your hands. So nobody would touch it. And I knew a lot of guys in the industry.
None of the manufacturers wanted to.
And I thought for sure I could twist one of their arms, and none of them would touch it. Because not only do you have frozen fruit, you have chocolate, you need freezers on site. Wow. Nobody in the chocolate industry had freezers on site. So we ended up just doing it ourselves. The guys up at Mrs. Call's, or it's now the Candy Co. in Linden, were nice enough to let us come into their plant. And they leased us a line. We just leased one of their lines. And we added some equipment to it. We had to go buy some equipment that would, cryo freeze and some other things that would quick freeze. But with that, we were able to figure out how to do it.
So it's really interesting because I'm hearing like the origin story, and then I'm thinking of kind of these principles of entrepreneurship and principles of doing a startup. You think about failing fast, failing cheap, the minimum viable product of, experiment, figure out if you can get product market fit, validating your product before you've really spent much money.
Right.
And then kind of the next step is leasing a line, not go lease a full building but like kind of piecing it out. Is this just like hard lessons learned over a lot of years, or was it intuitive, or did you just have the right founding team that just kind of knew, hey, these are the steps?
Yeah. I mean, it didn't make a lot of sense to sink $15 or $20 million into a factory when we didn't have any sales. Right? Yeah. Even though in retrospect, it might've been the right thing to do. But at the time, it made, I don't think we would have been as successful had we done that. We would have been caught up in our shorts.
You had to stay more scrappy.
Trying to get out of the box. So we had something to sell. Let's go sell it. We'll figure out how to make it.
Yep.
We knew how to make it. We'll figure out how to scale it.
Yep.
So that was, yeah, I mean, you can see it's a capital intense business. Manufacturing is a capital intense business. I remember as a manufacturer, we were the 10th largest manufacturer of confections in North America one time in the candy company.
Wow.
And we had a lot of money in equipment. And I would see people come and go, and we did a project for a company called Pure Delight. They made low carb bars.
Yeah.
During the early phase. And I remember we were spending so much money on equipment to scale that product for them. And then we would sell it to them. I want to say, well, I don't even want to say, it's embarrassing, but we would struggle for 50 cents with them. And they were selling it for almost 10 times what we were selling it to them for. And I got all the capital. I got all the capital. I kept thinking, she's smarter. That's the right way to do things. Yeah. So when we actually had a brand concept, I thought, okay, we're going to do it that way. I'm going
to claim that value.
We're going to scale faster that way. And we wouldn't have been able to grow as fast had we done it the other way, I think.
Yeah. So year one, what was revenue?
300,000.
Okay. So it was like,
and that was pure freeze dried product on the local markets.
Yep. And so how do you take it from that to hundreds of millions of revenue?
With the frozen product. The frozen product drove the company. So we call it Hyper Chilled, but we ended up selling to Costco, went to Costco and walked out of there 18 minutes later with an order. which I'd never done in my entire life. In all the products that we'd made and
18
sold.
minutes. They just
18
knew.
minutes. All she did was taste it, and we walked away with an order. And so the problem was that Mother's Day was coming up, and we told her, hey, we need like 8 weeks to make your order. She said, well, Mother's Day's in 4 weeks. Can you give me something for that? We're like, oh my gosh, we haven't made a bag of this yet. So we said, well,
you've never made a bag.
We hadn't made we hadn't run the line for a whole day.
So your first customer was Costco.
Yeah. So we were strapped from the very first day of production. We were behind and never caught up. We never caught up for the next 6 years. We never caught up, and we were investing in new lines and new equipment, and through COVID. And what do we have now? We have 8 lines, I think, and 1 in Poland and 5 in Ohio and 2 in Washington. And then we have 2 freeze-dried factories. So we were growing faster than we could produce it.
Just never breaking at the seams.
Yeah,
every step of the
way. Which sounds like a great problem to have, but it's a horrible problem.
Oh, and if you're the operator,
it's a good problem to have, but it's a horrible problem to have if people are looking to you to produce it.
Yeah, of course.
So we would always have the argument about whose job was harder. But yeah, it was fun.
And just knowing Brandon, spending time with Brandon, feels like you guys always had a pretty special partnership.
Yeah, Brandon,
high trust,
very even-keeled guy. I mean, I think our partnership was really good. We had very different personalities. Brian, very high-strung. In football, I used to say you need a prick in every team. Brian was the prick, and he'll admit it. He'll admit it. But we need it. You need that in a startup.
Somebody
that's going to be a prick and really say, I don't care what it takes, get it done.
Yeah.
You need somebody who can deliver it.
Yeah.
That was kind of me. And Brandon was the financial engineer and made sure we made money.
Yeah.
Never let any product go out. Never let any sell go out that we didn't make money on.
Wow.
Even though, the sales guys would come back and
want to sell it for,
hey, we got Stop and Shop here. They only want $80,000 in slotting fees, and here's the discount they want. And when you run the numbers, it's like, well, we don't make any money doing that.
Yeah.
So why would we do that? Well, we're not going to do that.
Yeah, just selling volume just to sell it.
Yeah, but
which so many companies make that mistake. Like if you don't know your numbers,
you want to still Stop and Shop. I mean, it's a big regional, but
if you don't know your numbers, like you're toast. You end up like putting yourself out of business.
Growth without profit is swelling, right?
Yeah. So
we work well together. I thought we worked well together. I thought the partnership worked well.
Why sell? Was it always a business that you planned on building and selling, or?
Yeah, I think Brian is a build and sell guy. I would be a little bit more of a build and hold guy, but look, in a partnership like that, the no wins. It's like, look, we're not going to build and hold, we're going to sell.
Yeah.
Like, fine. I mean, we'll all do fine that way.
Yep.
And it worked. I think it worked out well. I think we exceeded our capacity as a management team. I mean, you're getting into, we went from 300 in sales the first year, 300,000 to 6 million the second year. Had a little bit of a setback the third year where we stayed at 6, which we thought was a failure. And so we were having to put money in at the time.
Wow.
And you talk about success and failure. We had what was called the Creamy strategy. And no disrespect to the ice cream called Creamies. I love Creamies. You know Creamies?
Oh, yeah. I love Creamies.
So they're a great brand, but they're a local brand. I don't know what they do in sales, but they've never really been able to get out of Utah and Idaho, that area. So we thought, look, our backup strategy is, our failure is, we're going to become Creamies.
We'll go dominate this market.
We're going to dominate this market. We're going to fire everybody. We'll have a salesperson and an accountant and maybe somebody to go visit the factories every now and then. And we'll make $1 million, a couple $1 million a year. We'll sell $10 million in sales with $4 million in profit.
I've heard you say that multiple times. I remember the last time we were talking, you're like, I'm going to go buy this candy business. And the worst case scenario, I'll just keep it as a candy business.
Right. It never works out that way, right?
So you just anyway, can't help yourself.
we lasted for a whole year telling ourselves we're just going to give it this one last year, and if we can get over the hump, and then we got over the hump, and then it went from, I don't know, 6 to, what do we do, 15 to 38 to 120. Wow, so we just rocked.
Explosive growth.
Yeah. So, and I think we could have done more if we could have made more.
Yeah.
We just couldn't make enough.
What are like the 2 or 3 things you learn? Like the most profound things that if you were going back and you're talking to a 21-year-old Taz Murray that's motivated and driven, what would you, if you could distill entrepreneurship in your career into 2 or 3 lessons, what would you tell yourself? Like the most essential stuff?
I thought the things that helped us the most were surround yourself, know what you're good at, but also know what you're bad at, and surround yourself with people that are really good at the stuff you're bad at.
Partners or everything? I
think everything. I mean, it wasn't just partners.
Your executive
we hired
teams.
Hallmark marketing people because they knew marketing and we didn't back in the day. And, in this case, social media, we had no idea on social media, but we hired a great guy named Brady. He was an unbelievable marketing guy. And he took social media to the next level that I could have never anticipated, that created all kinds of loyalty. So I think number one is, know what you're good at, but know what you're bad at. And don't be afraid to surround yourself with people that know more about something that you don't.
Yeah.
You got to have supportive people, right? You got to have people that believe in you and believe in the project, but you need people that know their
stuff.
Expertise, right? So I was never afraid to pay somebody more than me. In fact, I prided myself on not being the highest paid guy. At Truefer, we didn't pay ourselves a dime.
Wow.
We worked for free for 6 years, and we could. I mean, all three of us had exits. So
yeah,
we could do that.
You think that allowed you to be a little more fearless?
Yeah.
Just knowing that, home base is taken care of, and like, let's go for this thing.
Right. Yeah.
We don't need to eat off of the business or taking too much out of the business.
Laying down. Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure. That, it was the only thing that was going to be worth anything was the asset at the end of the day.
Yeah.
It wasn't through salary. You're not making money.
You're not getting rich off your salary.
Right.
And
right.
You're going to go pay the top taxes.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
So anyway, that worked out at
so not number one.
So number one,
know what you're good at, know what you're not good at.
Right.
And also like hire.
Yeah. Number 2, play within yourself. I think you have to play to your strengths, right? So when you're running a business, you play to your strengths. You find a business that plays to your strengths. Because I don't think I could have ever done what you did. I could have never done what you did because I didn't have that skill set.
Yep.
And I probably couldn't have worked in a company that needed that skill set. So I found companies that were operational driven that I could actually understand and I could contribute to. So that I thought that was fairly important. And then brands matter. I mean, that was a big lesson I learned early on. Brands matter. Vision matters.
Yeah. Vision of the founder. Vision as the leader. Yeah. Setting the course for the company.
The day we sold Costco, I told everybody in the office, hold on to your butts because this company will never be this. And there was like 6 of us at the time. And sure enough, man, it was
game on.
It was game on from that day on.
Yeah.
It was like high pressure,
Was it so fun though?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of fun.
I think building something that you're proud of.
Yep.
Like, there's a guy named Tom Peters.
Mm-hmm.
That's a kind of business consultant. Mm-hmm. I admire him admire him so much, but he has this quote where he says, building a great business is an end in and of itself.
Mm.
And I really believe that's the case. Like, I think business is a spiritual game. I think about spirituality and like where I've been the most fulfilled in life. And it's business. You're serving people, you're growing, you're personally like getting stretched. So you're just seeing like this massive personal growth. Anyway, it's really special.
I mean, what you said just cued me. I mean, I think one of the things that made business fun was you loving the people you work with.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't know how much I'd miss everybody, but it's
hard.
I love those people. People put their life. I mean, they put their livelihood on the line for us and worked really hard and worked at less than competitive salaries.
It's a bit empty a little bit where you get the money,
right?
But you lose
all
the soul.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's kind of
hard.
hard.
Lose your soul.
Yeah, no one feels bad for you.
So if I had true, but if I had to tell myself at 21, I would say, the only way you're going to motivate people is to love them. Because people know, there's other ways to motivate. You can motivate through fear and all other stuff, but it's not lasting.
Yeah.
I think leadership takes a lot of love and a lot of caring for the people you work with, which is hard. You got the factory worker who, comes up to the front and needs a loan for a car. It's like, where does it end?
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I really cared about the people we worked with, and I enjoyed that.
Yeah,
I enjoyed that. I thought that was
that
was satisfying.
There's a service component to business that
providing livelihood
but it pulls you out. It requires you to serve. Serve in a big way, and you take that concept of we're not making salaries,
right?
Like we're building this to go build something great.
Right. And it's a little self-serving because you're going to you hope to get paid in the end.
You're working for something,
but you're putting everything back in right.
You eat last
to grow.
Yeah, like if it doesn't work, you work for free.
Yeah, that's it. You walk away with nothing. And at least people that work for. So I thought the really fun part about it was when you sell, we shared a lot of. We shared probably 10% of our proceeds.
Wow, so that's a big pool.
Oh, it was a big pool.
Yeah,
people. It was life-changing money for all of us.
Yeah.
But for a lot of people in the company, it was life-changing money that I can't tell you how many tears were shed the day we told people we were going to share this much with you and this much with you.
I want you to expand on that, but I have a couple of stories of mentors of mine that just influenced me so much. So the first one, I experienced it. I was an employee at Vivint, and got on at Vivint and got some equity in that company early. But they had a decision on how they were going to do their pool. And I think their pool was similar, to your size. It was a 10% pool.
Big.
But they distribute it very broad.
Mm-hmm.
And, I think this is something that founders, you get to choose. Is it a narrow pool or is it a broad pool, and who participates and how do they participate? But when we, sold the solar company, or when we went public, everybody had ownership in the Holdco, which owned all of it.
Mm-hmm.
And it was hundreds of millionaires were created.
Wow.
And it changed, it changed lives.
Yeah.
It was so meaningful for so many people. And I've always thought about that, when you're in it, it's almost like your parents are doing something and you don't really see it or notice it. But you kind of step back, and when you're the parent, you're like, hey, how do I want to do that? And it influenced me so much. And there's other local companies that did it the opposite. It was very tight pools and big outcomes, but less people.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people were involved, but less people participated. The other one, there's one of our, mentors, a guy named Brian Murphy. I don't know if you know that name, but he was the founder of Portfolio Advisors, big private equity firm out of New York. And my business partner, Dave, worked for him out of college. And he really held our hand, when we started Sandlot, and is, kind of helped us every step of the way. But when they sold their company, there's, they had a pretty broad stock pool, but there was also a group of people that didn't participate. They either came on too late or chose not to invest. And so when he announced it, he basically said, everybody that works here, your kids get a scholarship.
Oh, wow.
Regardless of number of kids.
That's awesome.
And the same thing, he just said,
yeah.
The tears. And I hear these stories and you get emotional because you're just like, man, that's like the good stuff.
It's the good stuff. It's why you do it, right?
You got to be so proud.
Oh, yeah. We had the broad strategy. Of course, you want really key people in key roles. We gave them bigger incentives.
Yeah.
Dion Rasmussen came on early on. He had no business coming to work for a little company like ours. He had lots of experience in the consumer product industry, had been in CPG all his life. He had no business working for a small company like that. So we gave him an incentive to
some
come
real
work
equity.
for us.
Yeah.
So, guys like that got a lot more money than maybe somebody that's doing the shipping or whatever. So,
Yeah.
but we wanted everybody to get some to participate. I mean, the summer intern that started the day before we sold got a $10,000 check.
Wow.
And you would have thought she won the lottery. I mean, she cried probably more than people who were getting millions of dollars, but it was fun to do. It was fun to see life-changing money. I mean, people that had been in debt still from school were paying off school debt, paying off mortgages, paying off, and then had money to burn and for the first time in their lives.
Wow.
So, I gave everybody The Richest Man in Babylon. I gave everybody the book. I said, read this and hopefully internalize it. We had financial advisors come in and give people advice on how to deal with money. They've never had money before.
Yeah.
So to me, that's the payoff. I mean,
there's a quote by I was watching this podcast, and it was so like profound to me, but it was the dean of Harvard Business School, a guy named Nitin Nori.
Okay.
And he was with David Solomon from Goldman Sachs, and they're doing a podcast, and he's talking about capitalism and socialism, and Harvard's the capital of capitalism. Like, this is like the light on the hill of like capitalism. And, the feedback is that, there's good and there's bad that comes with capitalism. And he said, that's true, but there's over 1 billion people that have been brought from poverty to the middle class because of capitalism. But he said something that was so profound, and what you're describing, like, I've just experienced this to be true, both personally and with the people that I worked with. He said the truest form of dignity that you can give to another human being is to teach them to be economically self-reliant. And I think about that dignity that I experienced going from being a scared college kid without really any skills to be able to like take care of myself, to learning this skill of selling, and the dignity that I felt knowing I can pay my own bills. I can get into a house. I can take care of me and my wife, and, the pride that came with, a little thing at that point in life, but it wasn't little to me. It was everything to me.
Right.
And so as you're talking about, The Richest Man in Babylon and the financial planners and it's trying to educate the people you care about the most to be economically self-reliant, that they can make good choices.
Right. Hopefully they do.
And that it's not a problem to them hopefully they are good stewards, of that. Because when it shows up all at once, a lot of times it's a problem. You look at professional athletes and
easy to blow, easy to think it's going to happen again.
Lottery winners or whatever. It's just, if you don't have those habits in place,
right,
it's very tough to keep it.
Right.
Yeah.
It's great.
Talk to me about the failures. What we talked about are like these sunny times, but what were the low points where you're like,
well,
I'm not going to make it, or,
Yeah. I mean, there was plenty. I remember, I had always wanted to get, something healthy in chocolate, even during the chocolate days. And I was came up with a brand. This is my marketing expertise at work. Came up with a brand called, Choco Med. Kind of rolls off the tongue, doesn't it?
It kind of sounds terrible.
Yeah, it was, and it just like, it wasn't, but I believed in it, and we made some bars with a little bit of, we had fruit additives, and it was horrible. Just, we tried to do one for heart health, one for brain health, one for gut health, and I can't remember one for some antioxidant bar. So we kept thinking that this was going to be the next big thing. And it was the biggest dog in the world. I mean, I can't tell you how much money we were off on that deal. But, we sold to Costco, and Costco did great in some regions. Other regions failed miserably. Texas, for some reason, hates raspberries. I'm convinced Texas hates raspberries. So if you're from Texas, call Casey and tell him you love raspberries, because you're in a very small minority. We couldn't give that stuff away.
You couldn't do it, huh?
I mean, the standard for Costco is you got to sell at least $1,000 per store per week. And we were selling $100 per store.
In Costco.
1/10 of what Costco wanted. in Texas, just in the Texas region. In the Northwest region, people love raspberries. So we were selling
That's crazy.
And then in LA, we fell flat again. So we really thought that's when the Creamy strategy came out. Like, maybe we just need to be a local brand.
You just have these like misses where you're like, it doesn't work here.
Yeah. And I flew down to LA to go to the stores to find out why. Like, why isn't this selling? The position was, I thought, well, maybe they're burying it behind the broccoli or something.
Yeah.
No, it was right where it was supposed to be.
Front and center.
So anyway, there was probably different reasons for it, but we finally figured out that, well, our brand isn't very strong. Let's grow the brand. So Target was our first real national customer. And once Target took it, we started at like, I think we were at $3 per week per store, 3 units per week per store, which is below average. But that gradually grew until at our height, we were doing 60 units per week per store. So Target loved us. And as a result, everything we came out with, they wanted I don't care what your new product is.
As much as they can have.
It.
Yeah. Just because it was selling off the shelf.
It was selling off the shelf. That helped grow Kroger. And then that helped grow, Walmart. Walmart was actually last, but bottom line is you have to sell Walmart if you're going to be a consumer product brand in the U.S. And then Costco reignited, and so it took back off again. But so that the failures there were dark days because we were right. I mean, when you fell then, you're writing checks.
Yeah, that's
you're like, I got to pay people's salary. I got to keep it going. So yeah, it was those were dark days.
Yeah,
those were dark days. But I can't even tell you how many. My very first entrepreneurial thing in high school was a failure. I remember we were going to landscape. My dad sold Rainbird equipment, so we can figure out how to put Rainbird equipment in people's yards. So we drew up this, when we went and knocked on anybody that had a new house that didn't have a yard, we just knocked on their door. And one guy came out and said, "Oh yeah, I'd love that. Give me a plan and a price estimate." So we went back and worked up the plan and double coverage on all the sprinklers and all that. Came back and gave him the plan. He goes, "That's great. Let me think about it." And then we went by like a week later. He's out digging his own ditches. I'm like, wait, I thought you were going to, he said, "No, your plan's great. I'm just going to do it myself."
Come on. He just had you go build him a free plan.
So, you learn those lessons, right? But it was, I mean, the first heart box I ever designed was a disaster. It was, I really thought that men bought heart-shaped boxes for Valentine's, right? So I designed a box.
I have this picture.
A red box with a blue ribbon on. Who doesn't think their wife is a blue ribbon girl, right? So anyway, or their girlfriend. So we designed this box and we print them. And I took it to the Smith Spire, and the Smith Spire, a guy named Greg Butler, he looked at it and goes, "Wait, are you selling me beef or are you selling me chocolate?" I'm like, "What? No. Don't you get it? It's a red heart with this blue." He says, "It looks like a package of beef, the blue ribbon beef." I never sold. We threw those boxes away. They're like 60 grand worth of boxes. So that's, so of course, yeah, we had all.
What was the scariest one? Because there's points in your career where there's points in the career where it's stressful.
Yeah.
And there's other points where it's scary.
Oh, scary was the bank called our loan. And that was scary. That was, I remember going out onto the patio with my wife, and we lived up in the foothills of Provo, and I could see like townhomes down in the valley. I said, "We're going to live in one of those. I hope you're ready for that." And she, to her credit, said, "Honey, I don't care where we live. As long as we're together, things will be great." Took a lot of pressure off.
You're just dropping these crazy things on your wife.
Right?
We're screwed.
I think we're gonna lose it all. We were gonna lose it all. It was a group. It was a sub-debt lender out of L.A., and I'll even name him by the name of Kane Anderson. And it wasn't the Kane and the Anderson. It was the guys they hired in the program. But it was a loan-to-own deal.
They wanted it.
They wanted it.
Yeah,
they loved the brand. They loved the Fannie Mae brand.
So it was kind of predatory.
Oh yeah,
they were trying to take it.
They when we bought Fannie Mae, we needed a few more. It was in an auction. We had to, so we went to the auction, got above what we had come with. So we called Kayne Anderson on the phone and said, "Hey, we need another $2 million." I said, "You got it." So we assumed, as you would, that it was at the same terms of the other sub-debt, $4 million of sub-debt we had from them. No, this was, in their opinion, much higher risk. So we'll have a much higher price and a much, much closer triggers. So when we triggered one of their loan covenants, they called the loan. And then as a result, the senior lender, which was Bank One at the time, called their loan.
Wow.
And we thought we were dead. We thought we needed a seasonal business. Remember, you got to build inventory for Christmas.
Yeah.
And then you sell it and then you collect all the cash. And then you're cash rich for a few months, and then you start building inventory.
Yeah.
So that we were right in the middle of that cash cycle where we needed cash. And I thought, oh my gosh,
we're toast.
We could go down.
Yeah.
Who's going to lend us money when the bank has called our loan? Who's going to do that? What traditional lender will do that?
How'd you solve it?
Hedge fund. A hedge fund out in New York.
Wow.
Came to the post and said, well, not only will I put my foot on the neck of the bank, I'm going to put my foot on the neck of the sub-debt lender where they can't move. Because as long as I lend you money in a senior position, they have no priority. So it was, I mean, to this day, we paid them a lot of money, but it was worth it because it saved the business. I mean, the sub-debt lender was ready to step in and just take over.
So they just came in and
they just
squeezed them.
They squeezed it. They could have put their own money in and taken it out.
That fires me up.
Oh,
so they just kind of played the game better.
Oh yeah. Couple of guys that were pretty sharp dudes, but pretty slick dudes.
That's fun, man.
So anyway, yeah, that was scary.
Oh man, those are the stories that are the gold. And I don't think talk to me about education from the failures versus the successes.
Yeah, you never forget them, right? Especially when you come that close to going out of business, you remember those lessons, right? You apply them, and you never want to put yourself in a position where you're in that position again.
Yeah.
To have a bank be able to shut you down. But, in today's environment, you need banks.
Yep.
And every now and then you're going to stub your toe. But you got to realize that bankers, they're not your friend. They work for the bank. They don't work for you.
Yeah.
Even though you're pretty chummy with them and they might take you golfing or whatever. But at the end of the day, if you violate the covenant, sorry, dude.
Yep.
They don't lend on character anymore. That's back in the old days. It's all about the numbers. And if you violate a covenant, see you later.
Yeah.
So those lessons are hard learned, but they go a long way. I mean, the Heartbox story, I ended up hiring Lynn Wiley out of Hallmark. She was a great marketing person, and she came in and said, "You're an idiot."
But this is the good stuff. And I think this is the one that, to think that going on that entrepreneurial journey, that you're just going to get it right all the time is so naive. But I think all of us kind of, whether it's pride or whatever else, we think we're going to get it right.
You have to, if you don't think you're going to win, you will never win.
Yeah.
Right? You have to think you're going to win.
It's this crazy dynamic of you kind of have to be ignorant and kind of confident or cocky.
I'll tell you when that really hit me. I thought, and I still think that first company, Alpine Confections, was a hard business to run.
Yeah.
Seasonal, hiring and firing, cash flow varied. You'd have to ship to Kmart $10 million worth of product and hope they'd pay you. And I'm talking to the Mike and Ike owner, and he's like, "Oh, I don't give them more than $200,000 of credit," because he's selling them every day. I'm selling them once a year. So I sell them as much as he does in a year, but all of my risk is in one sale.
Wow.
So I remember sitting there at my desk, and the insurance guy pulls up, and he pulls up in a BMW, and he gets out and he walks in, and I'm like, my gosh.
Selling you insurance.
We needed insurance, right?
Yeah, of course.
So
you're like, his business is better than my business.
This guy is driving, I am struggling driving my Nissan Maxima. And this guy drives up in a BMW. And then it finally hit me. I'm like, you know what? My job is to solve problems. And the quicker I figure out what the solution is, the faster, the happier I'm going to be. Because I can dwell on these problems all day.
All day.
I mean, Loblaw called me one day and wanted to send back a bunch of product. I'm like, you can't send back 160,000 over the product. So anyway, it was just like stuff like that. It's like, okay, well, we're going to figure this out. That's unacceptable. Let's find something that works for both of us.
Yeah.
And once I figured that out, the faster I could learn from a mistake, the faster I could move on. So I was always, from that time forward, I was always looking for what am I supposed to learn from this experience. And I'm gonna remember it and I'm gonna use it going forward.
Yeah.
That was the only way that I could, that's the only way that I could like mentally survive.
We both of us collectively just invested in this Breeze Airways deal. And I think what you're describing, I think that's why we had so much conviction in that deal. You've got a founder that's screwed it up a lot of times.
He knows
over five, and you
right
the pain and getting kicked off of your board, and getting fired from your company, and credit terms and credit covenants, and when to raise money and how to raise money, and public markets and all those things. And I think as an investor, you look at somebody that has the scar tissue or has the, and you're like, I, don't think we'll make new mistakes, but I don't think we'll make those catastrophic hard ones because they've made them before.
Right.
And I think that's, that's the thesis, is that you should get better over time.
Right.
You shouldn't keep making the same mistake.
Right. That's how I felt at True Fruit. I mean, I'd stepped in all the puddles at Alpine Confection in the consumer products world. And I knew which ones we should avoid. I didn't want to be seasonal. I wanted to be everyday company. I wanted to have a health halo. I wanted to have, these.
No, you see the almost the holy grail of the first business in the second business. Right. Like, if we could just have this, and when it appears, I mean, it appeared in front of Dole, and they tried to take advantage of it, but it was just a different vision, a different experience where I knew what good product tastes like. Yeah. And we're going to make a good product that tastes great and people love and want to repeat. So we'll finish with this. This one is one that, I'm always fascinated with when I see people that have been successful, not one time, but over the course of time. Talk to me about faith. And, you've had different partners from different faiths and your current faith, and talk to me about how you think about it, and then two, how it's influenced your decisions.
So I'll probably disagree with you on one level. You said earlier that you got a lot of satisfaction out of business, and I did, and I still do. And I love business, but for me, it's a way, it's more of a, I'm providing for my family, right? In my mind, there's my life as a business person, and there's life as a spiritual. I don't think I ever cried at business. I was mad. I would be upset. I was happy. I was joyful, but I don't think I ever cried tears of joy in my business. But I can tell you, we blessed our granddaughter this weekend. Yeah. And I'm going to cry right now. I cried real tears of joy. Sorry. The eternal perspective of having long-term joy versus happiness is so different. I think it's just an order of magnitude different. So the spiritual journey is true happiness, right? That's faith brings true happiness. The fact that you can have faith and repent and change and do better and have, I think, experiences that elevate you, to elevate you and your family and those that you're going to spend eternity with. I mean, I think to me, that eternal perspective is a whole order of magnitude different than my life in business. And I love business. I'll continue to pursue business until the day I die, but I don't know that I'm ever going to cry when I lose money as sad. When I make money, I'm happy, but it's not the end of the day, right? Yeah. The end of the day is wow, how am I going to, what's my relationship like with the Lord? What's my relationship like with my wife and my family?
Yeah. And has it always been there? Has it always been easy for you?
No. I mean, I think I made plenty of mistakes I think I was way out of balance. I mean, I traveled so much. I was gone a lot. Tammy, I think we would have had more kids had I not been traveling as much.
Yeah.
So I think I made real mistakes, but I realize it now, and I realize it going forward that I want it. I can adjust and make, so it true through. I mean, at one point I realized I need to spend more time with my family. So I would invite kids to go on trip. Like when I took my daughter to China, I took my son to Denver on a trade show. I take them to trade shows. I started including them in the business.
Yeah.
Which made being gone a lot more acceptable.
Because you could be gone with them.
Easier to be gone. I mean, I felt a little bit more fulfilled, but at the end of the day, I retired and I devoted my 100% of my time to how do I help the community? How do I help my family? How do I, I had a different experience with my sons than I did with my daughters, because my daughters all grew up while I was gone. My sons grew up when I was around.
Yeah.
So it made a difference.
Taz, thank you for coming in. It was so special. And, we were talking before, and I just think you have a beautiful story, and I think you're a beautiful human. I think you have a beautiful soul, and I'm grateful that you shared it with us. It fires me up. It fires me up when I see people that are good and do good and create great, something that both them and then their community. And, I know it. I'm a consumer of a product, and I'm proud of that product. I'm actually proud to bring it home and we eat it and have it for dessert.
Thank you.
And I've got a friend that made it, and I, like it more because of that. And I think, there's probably a lot of people that are just so happy to see you succeed because they, they're cheering for you. And so anyway, thank you for sharing the story.
Appreciate it. I hope I didn't put you to sleep, but
so good.
Look, I appreciate your curious mind and what you're doing here. I've enjoyed your podcast, and so keep going.
Yeah, thank you. That was so good.